Father's Day always made my daughter polite. Not warm, not careless, polite. Emily would call at 10 because she knew I had been awake since 6. She would say, "Happy Father's Day, Dad," with the bright lift that almost sounded like the girl who slept in the back seat after soccer practice. Then the adult part would arrive. Brunch reservation, parking note, Graham's schedule, a warning about not bringing up her mother, my old work, or the exits I still noticed before menus. That year, she asked me to meet them at a bistro in Montclair. A Father's Day lunch, she said, just the 3 of us. I stood in my condo hallway with my keys in my hand and told myself not to make meaning out of a reservation. A grown daughter can invite her father to lunch without making it a peace treaty. A grown father can accept without asking the cost. Still, I wore the good shirt, pale blue, pressed at the cuffs. I shaved twice under the jaw because Emily had once said gray stubble made me look like I had given up. I put her childhood card box back in the closet. That was my first mistake. I had already made the lunch bigger than she promised. She was waiting outside with Graham. Emily had cut her hair shorter since Easter, just above the shoulders, and it made her look like Linda when Linda was tired of forgiving me. Graham stood behind her with one hand on her back, smiling like a dealer who had already priced a thing. "Happy Father's Day," Emily said. She hugged me quickly. Graham shook my hand longer than he needed to. "Michael," he said, "we actually brought you something." The box was small, dark green, tied with a narrow cream ribbon. Emily held it out with both hands. I took it carefully. Habit, not suspicion. If someone hands me a box, I notice weight before color, and pressure marks before words. Graham watched that too. His eyes moved from my fingers to my face. "Don't inspect it like evidence," Emily said, but she smiled when she said it. That should have been harmless. In our family, jokes often came dressed as warnings. Inside was a hard leather case, old but polished. Not fake old, not distressed for a catalog. The hinge had the stiffness of something opened by careful hands for years and then stored away. I lifted the lid. Reading glasses sat in dark velvet, oval lenses, slender temples, and a warm gold frame that caught June light like jewelry. Not loud gold. Old gold. The kind that makes people say vintage because antique sounds like a claim. "They're readers," Emily said. "You keep buying those drugstore ones and leaving them everywhere." "These are not drugstore ones," Graham laughed. "No, sir. Early 70s frame, probably European. I had the lenses replaced. Emily told me what you use." Emily looked proud then, and for one clean second I let myself believe she had chosen them because she remembered me squinting over menus. That was all I wanted. Not a speech about the divorce, just proof that my daughter had noticed one ordinary need and answered it without asking first. "Try them," she said. I put them on. The menu board inside sharpened. Emily's face sharpened. Graham's hand on her back sharpened, too, thumb pressing once against her dress, as if he had reminded her to watch my reaction. "They suit you," he said. I thanked them both. I meant it for Emily, but Graham caught it like a receipt. The hostess put us near the front windows. Father's Day had filled the room with clean shirts, toddlers in stiff shoes, and grandfathers pretending not to enjoy attention. Emily sat across from me. Graham chose the chair beside her, angled enough to see my hands and the leather case. He ordered coffee for all of us before I had opened the menu. "Still black?" he asked. "Still mine to order," I said. Emily's eyes lifted. Not anger yet. Warning. I softened it. "Black is fine." Graham gave a pleasant shrug. He talked about an estate sale in Short Hills, cufflinks in a cedar drawer, a stylist who wanted authentic pieces instead of costume junk. He used the word provenance twice. Men who use that word casually usually want you to stop asking for it. I kept the readers on because Emily kept glancing at them. The lenses were made for close work, so the room softened at the edges. Close things sharpened. The menu, Emily's ring, Graham's thumbnail tapping his cup. "Dad," Emily said, "you do like them, right?" "I do." "You look surprised." "I am surprised." That made her smile for real. I had spent years collecting those small, true things and pretending they were enough. The waiter came. I ordered salmon because Emily had once called it not depressing. Graham ordered for Emily after she paused. She let him. I noticed, then hated myself for noticing. When the waiter left, Graham leaned back and looked at me over the rim of his coffee. "A frame like that should be worn," he said. "Old things die in drawers." The line was smooth enough to belong in his shop. Emily reached under the table and squeezed his knee. A thank you, or a reminder. I could not tell. The man at the next table noticed the glasses when I turned. I saw his reflection in the glass first, mid-60s, narrow shoulders, silver hair cut close, napkin in one hand. Someone at his table was talking, but he had stopped listening. His eyes were fixed on the frame. He stood too fast, his chair scraped the floor. Emily looked over, embarrassed before anything had happened. Graham did not look embarrassed. He went still. "Excuse me," the man said. I took the glasses off. His face had changed the way people change when they recognize a thing before their mind gives permission. "Can I see those?" Graham leaned forward. "They're prescription." The man ignored him. His hand was already out, palm up, shaking slightly. I should have asked his name first. Instead, I held the frame by one temple and let him take the bridge between two fingers. That was my second mistake. Public contact, no record yet. I knew better. He turned the glasses toward the window light. His thumb found a tiny mark inside the bridge. Not a maker's stamp, a repaired notch, almost hidden under the gold. His face lost color so fast, Emily whispered, "Oh my God." "Where did you get these?" he asked. Graham answered first. "They were a Father's Day gift." "From where?" "Private estate contact," Graham said, pleasant voice thinning. "Why?" The man looked at me then, not at Graham. Whatever he had recognized, he had decided I was either the safest person at the table or the most dangerous one. He bent close enough that only I could hear. "You need to call the police," he whispered. Emily's fork touched her plate with a bright little sound. Graham's jaw moved once, like he had bitten the inside of his cheek. I did not call the police from the table. That sentence still sounds worse than the truth. The truth was narrower. I did not call from the table because Emily was staring at me with naked panic. Graham was measuring the room, and the man with my glasses in his hand had already touched the one thing that might later matter. A public scene would give everyone a story before I had a timeline. "Your name?" I asked him quietly. "Nathan Reed." "Give me your number." He wrote it on the back of a receipt with a hand that had not stopped shaking. I took the glasses back by the temple, not the bridge, folded them, and put them in the case. Then I put the case in the inside pocket of my jacket. Emily whispered, "Dad, what is happening?" "Lunch is happening," I said. Graham smiled at that. Too quickly. We finished almost nothing on our plates. Nathan left before us. Graham paid the check, though I had my card out, and Emily kept touching her phone under the table. In the parking lot, she asked if I was angry. "No." "Then why are you acting like this?" "Because your husband just gave me an expensive frame that a stranger recognized like a dead woman's photograph," I thought. I said, "I need to understand what he saw." Graham opened his arms a little, friendly again. "Michael, vintage pieces have stories. Sometimes people imagine connections. Sometimes they don't." I drove home with the case on the passenger seat and did not put the glasses on again. At 11:47 that night, Graham texted me, "Hope the readers grew on you. A frame like that belongs with someone who appreciates it. You planning to keep them?" I read the message twice. Then I set the phone face down, wrote the time on a yellow pad, and left the case closed. I called Nathan Reed at 7 the next morning. I had slept badly, not because I was afraid of police, but because I knew what an innocent delay can look like after someone starts choosing words for it. A retired investigator receives a valuable frame. A stranger warns him. He goes home with it. That is not guilt, but guilt can wear that shape if the wrong person speaks first. Nathan answered on the second ring. "Mr. Whitaker." "Michael is fine," I said. "You recognize the bridge." There was a pause. I heard a kitchen, a faucet, One deep breath too close to the phone. My sister had a pair like that, he said. Margaret Reed. She collected small gold pieces, frames, compact cases, watch chains, personal things. She died 4 years ago. Were they stolen before she died? I asked. Nathan said, after. From her Hoboken apartment while we cleared it. A contractor had a key. My nephew had a key. Half the building had a key. Police took a report. Insurance called it sentimental value until I showed appraisals. He spoke carefully, as if anger had taught him to count before each sentence. Why that frame? I asked. The bridge cracked when she dropped it in a grocery store lot, he said. She had it repaired by an old optician jeweler in Newark. He put a tiny notch inside where he reinforced it. I drove her there. I paid the bill. I told him a notch was not enough by itself. I know, he said. That mattered. A man reaching for fantasy usually fights limits. Nathan did not. He was afraid of being wrong and more afraid of being right too late. I told him I had the glasses, had not worn them, and no one else touched them after lunch. He said, your son-in-law touched them with his whole life before lunch, didn't he? I did not answer that. Not yet. After the call, I cleared my kitchen table like I was preparing for a deposition exhibit. White towel down, phone camera ready, no coffee, no plate, no fingerprints I could avoid adding. I did not take the glasses apart or polish them. I opened the case, photographed the outside, the hinge, and the way the frame sat in the velvet. Only after that did I lift them by the left temple. The repair mark was where Nathan said it would be. A shallow crescent inside the bridge, easy to miss unless grief trained your eye. Beside it, under the curve of gold, were 2 letters so small I had to angle the frame toward the window. M.R. Margaret Reed, if Nathan was telling the truth. Or a coincidence if Graham needed one. I wrote both possibilities on the yellow pad because comfortable answers are how people start lying to themselves. At 8:16, Emily texted, Morning. Graham says the readers may sit crooked. He can take them back to his guy today and have them adjusted. I looked at the case on the towel. The timing was too neat. Before Nathan had called the repair shop, before any official question, before I had asked Emily anything. I typed, they fit well enough. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Dad, please don't be weird about this. Graham feels awful that some random man ruined lunch. Not frightened, not confused, ruined lunch. I took a screenshot, then another with the timestamp visible. That sounds cold if you have never had family become evidence. It is grief with a ruler in its hand. I answered, who selected the frame? The phone stayed silent for 11 minutes. When Emily finally called, she did not say hello. Graham found them, she said. I mean, he found the frame. I chose the idea. I asked from where. One of his estate contacts. I asked for a name. Dad. That one word carried 3 old arguments. You interrogate, you don't trust me, you make every room into work. I let it pass. I said, Emily, a man recognized the frame and told me to call police. She answered, a man got emotional in a restaurant. I told her that was Graham's sentence. She inhaled sharply. No, it is my sentence. I was there. Then she had to answer my question. Her voice dropped. I don't remember the contact's name. Graham handled that part. I paid for part of it if that's what you're asking. It wasn't some scam. Money. She had moved to money before origin. That told me Graham had prepared her for one accusation and not the one that mattered. I said I was asking who owned the frame before she gave it to me. She snapped, how would I know that? Do you know who owned every watch you've bought? I said, I don't give watches to people after a stranger says police. Silence followed. Then softer. Can we please just have them adjusted? If they're connected to anything, Graham can ask his guy. Quietly. Without you making a call that follows me into work. That was the pressure point. Not my worry, her work. Emily coordinated gallery previews. Graham fed vintage accessories into the same network of collectors, stylists, and people saying provenance over wine. A police question around my Father's Day gift would not stay in one family. No, I said. She asked what I meant, and I made the boundary plain. No quiet adjustment, no return today. She did not cry. Emily rarely cried when she wanted something. She became efficient. "Then don't wear them," she said. "Don't show them. And please don't call that man again until Graham checks." I told her I already had. Her breath caught, and for the first time that morning she sounded afraid for the right reason. Nathan called back at noon. "The repair shop still exists," he said. "Different sign, same family. Saul Friedman is old as dirt, but his niece says he kept paper ledgers in the basement." I told him not to ask for a copy. When he demanded why, I said, "Because if this becomes official, a private copy lets Graham say you and I built a story before anyone neutral saw the record." Nathan went quiet. I could hear traffic behind him now. He had not waited at home. He said, "I want my sister's things back." I told him I understood. "No, you don't." He was right. Margaret was not my sister. The stolen frame had not sat in my family photos for 4 years as a missing shape. But I understood the other danger. Grief can turn a witness into a liability if someone gives him a door to kick. "Listen to me," I said. "Ask whether the ledger exists. Ask whether the shop will respond to a police request. Do not send photos to strangers. Do not threaten anybody. Do not post about it." He said I sounded like a cop. I said I sounded like a man holding the object. That ended the argument. By mid-afternoon, Nathan had a name. Saul Friedman, retired optician jeweler, formerly on Ferry Street in Newark, now helping his niece 2 days a week. The ledger, if it still had the entry, would show a bridge repair for Margaret Reed's gold readers in 2018. It would not show Graham Lowell or theft. It would only show that the frame Emily had given me might once have belonged to Nathan's dead sister. That was enough to make returning it reckless. Not enough to make accusing Graham clean. I put the case in a freezer bag, not because a kitchen bag is official, but because it kept me from touching the leather when fear made me check the glasses were still there. At 5, Emily came by without Graham. That was new. Since the wedding, she had treated solo visits like border crossings, announced, short, and never after conflict. She stood in my doorway with sunglasses on her head and a tote bag over one shoulder. "I'm not here to fight," she said. I told her good. Graham spoke to his guy. "The frame probably just needs resizing. If you give it to me, I can take it tonight and bring it back tomorrow." The tote bag stayed open against her hip, empty enough for a case. I said no. Her mouth tightened. "Dad, you're making this ugly." I told her someone already had and I was keeping it still. "It was a gift," she said. "Then it can stay with the man you gave it to." She looked past me into the condo toward the kitchen table, as if the case might be sitting there waiting to be rescued. I asked who the estate contact was. Emily closed her eyes. "Graham bought it from a private collector." I asked for the name. "I don't remember." I asked if she ever knew. She opened her eyes then, and the hurt in them was real. That was the cruelty of it. Real hurt can still be used to guard a lie. "You always do this," she said. "You turn one question into a test." No. Graham turned a Father's Day gift into a question he should be able to answer. She left without the glasses. 10 minutes later, Graham texted a thumbs-up emoji, then deleted it before the message preview disappeared. I wrote that time down too. Graham came the next evening with a bakery box, because charm was his first answer to suspicion. He stood outside my condo door in a summer blazer too soft to look like work, and held the box up like a peace offering. "Emily said you like cannoli." Emily had never known what desserts I liked. Linda knew. Graham had either guessed or asked my ex-wife, and either choice made the visit prepared. I did not invite him past the entryway. He noticed the inch between welcome and refusal, set the bakery box on the console table, and glanced toward the kitchen where he hoped the case might be. "I owe you an apology," he said. "That whole thing at lunch was embarrassing." He meant Nathan's warning, but dressed it as accident. I gave the accident its name, Nathan Reed. Graham nodded as if the name mattered now that I had made it matter. People attach memories to objects, Michael. A watch looks like Dad's watch. A necklace looks like Grandma's. Suddenly everybody is sure. That doesn't make them liars. It makes them human. It was a good speech because it gave Nathan dignity while removing his usefulness. Graham did not call him crazy. He made him sentimental, and sentimental witnesses are easier to ignore. I asked where he bought the frame. He said a private contact. I asked for the name. He smiled with regret, not fear. I can't burn a source because a stranger had a moment in a restaurant. You know how trust works in small markets. I told him I knew how stolen things moved through small markets. The smile stayed, but the skin around it tightened. For the first time since Father's Day, Graham looked inconvenienced by the fact that I knew the right noun. Then he changed tactics. From the inside pocket of his blazer, he pulled a second case, newer, black, and expensive in the way stores make things expensive when they want a man to feel practical. He opened it toward me. Inside was another pair of readers, heavier, clean, dark tortoiseshell with gold at the hinges. "These are better for you anyway," he said. "Same prescription range, more stable. Keep these, give me the vintage frame, and I will handle the uncomfortable part." "What uncomfortable part?" "The part where a grieving man thinks his sister's belongings are everywhere." Graham lowered his voice, fatherly now, though he was 18 years younger. "Michael, you know what happens if you start calling police over a pair of glasses. Emily's name enters it. Her gallery hears. Nora hears. Clients hear." He let that sit, then added, "Suddenly your daughter is the woman whose father accused her husband of fencing stolen property because brunch got weird." There was the real offer, not replacement, silence with better packaging. I said, "Set that case down." He did, but the movement brought him one step farther into the condo. His eyes went past me again. Kitchen, hallway, coat hook, console drawer. He was mapping where a cautious man might store a small object. "The frame isn't here," I said. That was true. It was in the bedroom closet, inside a clean mailing box, still in the freezer bag, behind winter blankets. Not official, not perfect, but not in reach. Graham's expression flickered before he corrected it. "Didn't ask. You came with a replacement case." "I came to protect my wife from her father's old reflexes." That sentence was for Emily, though Emily was not in the room. He was already building the version she would hear later. Graham tried to be reasonable. Dad turned it into a case. After he left, the bakery box remained on the console table like a bribe too polite to accuse. I did not open it. I called Linda. My ex-wife answered with the tired patience of a woman who had known my silences before they became professional. "If this is about Father's Day, Emily already called me." "What did she say?" "That you scared Graham, insulted the gift, and are enjoying having a reason to investigate him." I looked at the black replacement case Graham had left behind. He had not asked for it back. Another object in my apartment, another possible version. Michael accepted a replacement, changed the deal, was negotiating. "Did she mention Nathan Reed?" Linda exhaled. "She said some man made a scene. He recognized the frame from his dead sister's stolen collection." The line went quiet. Linda had divorced me, not my judgment. When I gave her a fact without decoration, she still knew the difference between drama and danger. "Is Emily in trouble?" she asked. "Not if she tells the truth early." Not an answer. It is the only honest answer. Linda's voice hardened, and for a moment I heard the woman who used to stand in our kitchen and tell me that being right was not the same as being present. "Do not save her by lying, Michael." The words landed harder than anything Graham had said. "I am not trying to hurt her. I know. That's when you are most likely to do damage. You think if you absorb enough, she stays clean. She is 29. If she carried that thing to you for Graham, she has to say so before he teaches her what to say." That was Linda's gift. She never let my guilt pretend to be mercy. I hung up with 2 clean instructions. Do not return the frame. Do not turn Emily into a child because I had once failed her as one. I photographed Graham's replacement case where he had left it, then put it in a paper grocery bag and wrote the date across the top. A lawyer would have laughed at the home office quality of it. Fine. I was not building a courtroom exhibit. I was building a memory that Graham could not rearrange inside my own head. At 9:03, Emily texted, "Why did you make Graham feel like a criminal in your hallway?" I stared at that line longer than I should have. Not because it surprised me, but because it arrived exactly as expected. Graham had left my condo and reached her before I could. He had not said he came for the frame. He had said I humiliated him. I answered. He came with replacement readers and asked for the vintage frame back. She replied, he tried to fix an awkward situation. I wrote, ask him for the seller's name. The next message took 6 minutes. Dad, not everything is a deposition. The old family wound had been fitted over a new fact. Graham did not need to invent my weakness. He only needed to point Emily toward it. I had missed school plays for cases. I had taken calls at birthdays. I had once left Thanksgiving before dessert because a witness changed his statement. Emily had a whole childhood archive of me choosing the record over the room. But this time the room contained a possible stolen object, and the record was not my enemy. I wrote, if he can document the source, this gets simpler. Emily did not answer. Instead, Graham sent me a photo of the tortoiseshell replacement case on his own kitchen counter, the same case I had just bagged in my apartment. A minute later, he wrote, no pressure, just trying to keep everyone calm. He wanted 2 records, mine showing pressure, his showing generosity. I saved both messages. Before bed, I moved the original frame again, not far, from the bedroom closet to a locked file drawer in my small office. Movement creates risk, but leaving an object where fear first put it creates a different one. You start trusting hiding places more than decisions. I wrote the new location on the yellow pad and folded the page into my wallet. If anything happened to me, Linda would find it. That was not paranoia. That was respect for how quickly family stories turn when the only person with the timeline is silent. At 10:21, Nathan rang. Saul Friedman remembers the frame, he said. His voice had changed, not triumphant, shaken. Did he give you anything? No, you told me not to ask. His niece wouldn't let me near the ledgers anyway. But he remembered the notch. He remembered my sister because she argued about paying in cash. He said if police ask, he will look. That was limited and useful. A memory with a door, not a trophy in hand. Good, I said. Do nothing else tonight. Your son-in-law called my phone. I stood up so fast my chair hit the wall. What did he say? I didn't answer. He left no voicemail. Graham had gone around Emily, around me, and toward the man who could connect the frame to a dead woman's collection. Not proof of theft, proof of fear. After we hung up, I wrote one more line on the pad. Graham tried to reach Nathan after replacement offer failed. Then I sat in the dark office with the locked drawer beside my knee and understood that Father's Day was over. What remained was custody. Saul Friedman's shop was no longer called Friedman's Optical Repair. The old sign had been replaced by clean black letters on frosted glass. Ferry Street Eyewear. Inside, everything looked modern enough to distrust at first glance. Thin frames on pale wood shelves, a machine humming behind the counter, a young woman with a tablet who asked whether I had an appointment. Then I saw the back wall. 3 old wooden drawers, each labeled in fading ink. Screws, bridges, hinges. Some businesses renovate the front and keep their memory in the back. Nathan arrived 5 minutes after me and tried to enter like a man entering a church and a crime scene at once. I stopped him outside the door before he could speak to the niece. You are not here to accuse anyone, I said. I know. You are not here to demand the ledger. I know. If you can't hold that, wait in the car. His eyes flashed, but he nodded. That was the first useful thing he did all day. The niece's name was Mara. She had already been warned by phone that people were asking about an old repair. She did not like it. I respected that. A small shop can be dragged into somebody else's family mess and lose a week to fear before anyone proves a thing. My uncle remembers a woman named Margaret Reed, Mara said. He is 86. He remembers a lot of things and forgets lunch. I am not asking you to decide what it means, I said, only whether a record exists and whether you would respond to a police request. That word changed her face, not because she was hiding anything, because police makes ordinary people imagine forms, subpoenas, mistakes, and customers overhearing. She looked toward the back room. Uncle Saul can talk for 5 minutes, she said. No photos, no copies, no touching the ledgers. Limited proof is still proof if you treat the limits with respect. Saul Friedman sat at a narrow workbench under a lamp that made his hands look almost transparent. He did not stand. He looked at Nathan first, then at me, then at the paper bag under my arm. I had not brought the frame inside. That was deliberate. If Saul saw it in my hand, Graham could later say I had staged an old man's memory by presenting the answer before the question. Margaret Reed, Saul said before anyone asked. Gold readers, bridge crack. She was angry because I told her not to keep them in a soft purse. Nathan's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Saul turned to Mara. The Blue Ledger, 2018, spring. Mara did not move. Uncle, I am not blind, he snapped, which was funny only because half the shop was built around people who were. I know what a ledger is. I raised both hands slightly. We are not asking to see it today. Nathan looked at me like I had stolen something from him. Saul's eyes sharpened. Then why are you here? To know whether a record exists and whether police can request it. That answer pleased him more than grief would have. Old craftsmen know the difference between being asked to remember and being used. If police ask properly, Mara will show them, he said. Not to a son, not to a friend, not to a man with a story. Properly. Nathan looked down at the floor. His sister's name had just moved from memory into possible paper, and he was not allowed to touch it. That restraint cost him. I needed it to cost him, because later Graham would try to say Nathan and I had manufactured certainty in a back room. When we stepped outside, Nathan said, You enjoyed saying no to me. No. I needed you clean. Clean doesn't get Margaret's things back. Dirty loses them twice. By the time I reached my car, Emily had called 3 times. I did not call back from the sidewalk outside the shop. Too many people, too much anger, too easy to answer like a father instead of a man with an object in custody. I drove 2 blocks, parked near a pharmacy, and listened to her voicemail. Dad, Nora just asked me why Graham's name is being mentioned around an old stolen collection. Do you understand what you are doing to my job? She did not ask whether the frame was Margaret Reed's. She asked what I was doing to her job. That hurt, but it also told me where Graham had moved next. Nora Bennett, Emily's gallery director, had heard enough to become a pressure point. I called Emily back. She answered with traffic in the background and panic in her breathing. Did you call Nora? I asked. No. Graham did because Nathan Reed called him and sounded insane. Nathan did not call Graham. How do you know? Because I was with Nathan. That stopped her. Then she found the safer anger. You went to some repair shop with a stranger and didn't tell me. I went to confirm whether a repair record exists. We did not take a copy. You are scaring people. Graham called Nathan after he left my condo. Graham called Nora today. Ask why. She went quiet long enough for me to hear a horn and a woman's voice through her car speaker telling her to turn left. He is trying to protect me, she said. From the truth or from the timing? Emily hung up. 5 minutes later, she sent a single sentence. Stop involving my work in your old case fantasies. That was not Emily's natural language. She said dad drama, not case fantasies. Graham had given her a phrase and a target. The limited proof had not solved the danger. It had taught Graham where to put pressure. I called Nathan before he could call anyone else. Do not respond to Graham, I said. He texted me. Of course he had. I pulled into the pharmacy lot and closed my eyes for 1 second. Read it. Nathan read in a flat, furious voice. Mr. Reed, I understand grief can make old objects feel familiar. Please stop harassing my family and my wife's workplace. If you believe you have a claim, use proper channels. It was a beautiful trap. Graham had contacted the witness, accused him of harassment, invoked Emily's workplace, and used the phrase proper channels after trying to keep the frame out of them. If Nathan replied with anger, Graham would have exactly what he wanted, a volatile, grieving brother pressuring a family over a gift. Forward it to me, I said. Do not answer. He thinks I'm harassing him? He needs you to sound like you are. Nathan cursed. Then he did what I asked. That mattered more than the curse. I printed Graham's text at a copy shop because paper slows panic. I put it with the photos, Emily's messages, and my notes from Saul's shop. The stack was not proof of theft. It was proof of movement. Who tried to move the frame? Who tried to move the witness? Who tried to move the story from origin to harassment? That evening, I wrote a chronology in plain language. No adjectives. Father's Day gift. Restaurant recognition. Nathan contact. Home inspection. Emily adjustment request. Graham replacement offer. Repair ledger memory. Graham message to Nathan. When I finished, I saw the worst line was still mine. Did not call police from restaurant. I underlined it once. If I left my own delay out, Graham would own it later. I was about to call Emily and tell her one thing only. Do not contact Nathan Reed. My phone rang first. Nathan. Your daughter just called me, he said. For a second, the room went small around the desk lamp. What did she say? She asked what you wanted from me. Exact words. Nathan swallowed hard enough for me to hear it. She said, my father gets intense when he thinks he has leverage. What did he demand from you? I wrote the sentence down while he repeated it. Not because I wanted it to be true, because once a daughter repeats a husband's poison, a father has to stop protecting the version of her that existed 10 minutes earlier. Did you answer? I told her you demanded nothing. Anything else? I told her Margaret was real. That was human. It was also dangerous. Graham could now say Nathan had emotionally pressured Emily. Emily could say she called because I had frightened her. The ledger existed, but it sat behind a proper request. The frame was in my drawer, but I had delayed. The witness was angry. My daughter had just tried to find a money demand where none existed. Nathan, I said, from now on, if Emily or Graham contacts you, you do not pick up. And you? I looked at the underlined line in my chronology. I stopped waiting for my daughter to make this clean. That night, I put the freezer-bagged case, the printed messages, and the yellow chronology into a plain folder. On the tab, I wrote one word. Glasses. It looked too small for what it had already cost. The family group text had been quiet for 11 months. It was called Whitaker Updates, a name Emily had chosen after the divorce, when she still believed naming a thing could make it civil. The group held birthday logistics, Linda's medical appointments, one photo of Emily's dog in a raincoat, and long stretches of silence. At 8:12 the next morning, Graham revived it with a message that looked reasonable enough to survive a screenshot. I think everyone should know. Michael is holding on to a Father's Day gift after being told a stranger might claim it. We are trying to resolve this quietly and protect Emily's work. No one is accusing him. We just need the frame returned or handled properly before more people are dragged in. He had done 3 things in 2 sentences. He made me the holder. He made return sound like proper handling. He made Emily the person being protected. Then he added a heart emoji after her name, because men like Graham understand that softness can carry a knife through a family chat. Linda did not answer. That restraint cost her. I knew it did. Emily answered 4 minutes later. Dad, please, this has gone too far. I typed nothing. If I answered in the group, Graham would have the public argument he wanted. If I stayed silent, the message stood. That is how framing works. It gives you 2 bad doors and waits for you to open one. My phone buzzed again. Cousin Mark, who had not called me since Linda's brother's funeral, wrote, Mike, if there's money involved, get a lawyer and don't put Emily in the middle. Money. I stared at the word until the letters stopped looking English. Graham had moved the story from provenance to money before I had ever asked for $1. He did not need to prove I demanded anything. He only needed the family to wonder why money had entered the room. I saved the chat, printed it, and added it to the folder. Then I wrote one sentence under the chronology. Graham introduces money implication before official report. Nathan called at 9:40. He did not begin with hello. Did you ask them for money? I sat down before answering. Standing makes a man sound more certain than he is. No. Your daughter says you suggested compensation. There are moments when pain becomes physical, not because the words are surprising, but because they arrive in the voice of the one witness you needed clean. Emily had not merely wondered what I demanded. She had carried the demand to Nathan and placed it in his mouth. Exact words, I said. Nathan's breathing scraped the receiver. She said Graham told her you were willing to make this go away if they reimbursed the value and kept it out of her gallery. She said you always talk around things first, then make people guess the number. That last part was Emily's, not Graham's. Graham had supplied the accusation. Emily had supplied the childhood evidence to make it sound like me. Nathan, listen carefully. I have asked for no money. I will ask for no money. I have not offered to keep anything quiet. Then why didn't you call police at lunch? The line I had underlined myself came back with teeth. Graham had not invented it. He had waited for it. Because I made a bad tactical choice for a human reason, I said. My daughter was at the table. Nathan laughed once, bitter and broken. My sister wasn't. Then he ended the call. I called back. He did not answer. I texted one sentence. Do not destroy the root because they made me look useful to blame. He read it and did not reply. At noon, Mara from Ferry Street Eyewear called. Mr. Whitaker, I'm sorry, but my uncle won't be speaking to anyone else unless police contact us directly. That is exactly what should happen. Good, she said, but she did not sound relieved. Also, Mr. Reed came by again. My hand closed around the pen. What did he do? Nothing violent. He stood outside for a while. He asked whether people could buy old frames with no paperwork, and whether we knew dealers who moved things through galleries. I told him to leave. Witness management had become witness damage. Nathan had been pushed from brother to risk. Graham did not have to prove I was corrupt if he could make the recognizer look unstable enough that everyone backed away. If he comes back, don't engage, I said. And if anyone asks about me, tell them I requested no copy and no private handling. I already did. That answer should have comforted me. It did not. A clean fact in one mouth can become a dirty rumor in another before sunset. I wrote a new chronology line. Nathan returns to shop after Emily compensation claim. Shop limits contact to police only. Then I opened the family group text again. Emily had not written more. Graham had. Thank you to everyone encouraging calm. We are trying to avoid escalation and protect an elderly grieving man from being used. Elderly grieving man. Used. He had turned Nathan into a victim of me while still trying to keep Margaret's frame out of official hands. Linda came over that afternoon without calling first. She had a key from the years when Emily still needed someone to feed her cat during college trips. She used it now, walked into my office, and found the folder open on the desk. Linda did not touch it. She read the label, glasses, and then looked at me with an expression I had seen only twice in our marriage. Once when Emily broke her wrist, once when I forgot our anniversary and lied about why. She said you wanted compensation, Linda said. I know. Did you? I looked at her then because the question had to be allowed. If even Linda could not ask it, Graham's story would grow in the dark. No. She nodded once. Then stop trying to win this inside the family. I am trying not to put Emily in a report before I have to. Michael, she put you in a shakedown before breakfast. That was the cleanest sentence anyone had spoken all day. I showed Linda the chronology. She read it standing up, one hand pressed flat on the desk, as if the paper might move. When she reached the line about Emily's call to Nathan, her mouth tightened, but she did not defend our daughter. That was love in its hardest form, refusing to edit the harm. What happens if you go in? She asked. They take a report. Maybe they take the frame. Maybe nothing happens for weeks. Maybe Graham says I invented suspicion after a family argument. And if you don't? I looked at the group text, at Graham's word, money, at Nathan's silence. Then Graham keeps writing the first draft. Linda put the chronology down. Then stop him. Not punish him. Not save Emily. Stop him. I started rewriting the chronology in cleaner order for a statement, including the part I hated most. I had waited after the restaurant. At 6, Emily finally called again. Her voice was flat from exhaustion or rehearsal. If you file anything, I don't know how I stay married. That was meant to be the hook in my ribs. It found the place, but it did not pull me off the chair. Your marriage is not evidence custody. Do you hear yourself? Yes. Graham says you want him ruined because you never liked that I chose someone with a life you couldn't control. Now I could hear the larger story Graham had chosen for her. Not stolen property, not a missing collection, not a private source with no name. A controlling father jealous of a son-in-law. That version had room for every old failure of mine, and no room for a gold frame in a locked drawer. Emily, I said, did you tell Nathan I wanted compensation? Silence. Answer me. I said I didn't know what you wanted. That is not what he heard. Then maybe stop making everyone guess. She hung up before I could ask whether Graham was beside her. I did not need to ask. The sentence had arrived with his fingerprints on it. I put the cleaned chronology in the folder and set it by the door. Then the lobby intercom buzzed. Mrs. Caruso, our condo board president, came through the speaker before I could say hello. Michael? There's a gentleman here for you. Says it's family. He has an envelope. Behind her, faint but clear, Graham's voice said, Tell him it's just compensation paperwork. I don't want any misunderstanding. The midpoint had done its work. I was no longer only holding the frame. I was being offered the story of why I held it. I did not buzz Graham up. That decision saved me more than any sentence I spoke afterward. If he entered my condo with an envelope, the hallway camera would show a visit. If he left without it, he could say I had taken something before changing my mind. In the lobby, Mrs. Caruso could see what my hands did and did not touch. I took the elevator down with my phone recording audio in my shirt pocket. New Jersey is not a toy box for secret recordings, and I knew enough not to play lawyer with half-remembered rules. I was not publishing it or calling it magic. I wanted my own memory fixed because Graham had shown what he could do with a gap. Mrs. Caruso stood behind the lobby desk in a cardigan the color of oatmeal, lips pressed tight. She ran the condo board like a small court and trusted no one under 70. Graham stood beside the mail table with a padded envelope in one hand and his other hand open, visible, theatrical. Michael, he said, warm enough for the camera, thank you for coming down. I told him he was not coming upstairs. Mrs. Caruso's eyebrows moved. Good. Let the boundary be audible. Graham's smile softened into injury. I am not here to fight. Emily is devastated. I brought reimbursement documentation so no one can say you were left holding an expensive mistake. Put the envelope on the desk, I said. He said he'd rather hand it to me. I repeated it. He looked at Mrs. Caruso, as if asking a jury to notice how unreasonable I was. Then he placed the envelope on the desk with 2 fingers. I kept my hands at my sides. Mrs. Caruso, I said, please note I have not touched that envelope. She straightened. I can see that. Graham's face changed for half a second. The trap had expected pride. It had not expected a witness who liked procedure more than charm. Graham said, This is not cash. I told him I had not asked what it was. It is a written offer to cover what Emily paid and any inconvenience, he said. You return the frame to us. We document that no one benefited. Then you can decide what you want to do with Mr. Reed. Mrs. Caruso looked at the envelope as if it might leak. I told him he had just described a private exchange of the object after a police warning. He said, No, I described a family cleaning up confusion before it becomes public. I asked if he meant public like Emily's gallery. His eyes narrowed. You brought her work into it. You called Nora because you and Reed were making calls around my wife's job. He had fused the useful fragments. My action blurred with Nathan's grief. Graham's call renamed protection. The frame treated as a mistake with a refund attached. He wanted Mrs. Caruso to hear compensation, return, family, confusion. I turned to her. For clarity, I am not accepting the envelope. I am not returning any object to Mr. Lowell. I am going to ask him to leave. Mrs. Caruso nodded once, already composing the building email in her head. Graham gave a quiet laugh. Michael, you are performing. I said no. I am removing the stage. He stepped closer to the desk and lowered his voice. You think this makes you look clean? You kept the frame for days. You called the dead woman's brother. You went to a repair shop. Now you refuse reimbursement in front of a witness. That is not clean. That is a man trying to build leverage after the fact. The words hit because they were arranged around true pieces. That is the strongest kind of lie. It does not invent the bricks, it builds the wrong house. Mrs. Caruso, I said, would you call the non-emergency number and ask for an officer to advise on an unwanted handoff in the lobby? Graham's head turned. Are you serious? I said yes. Mrs. Caruso did not move fast, but she moved with the pleasure of a woman whose authority had finally been invited into something worthy. She picked up the desk phone and dialed the number taped under the blotter. Graham lifted both hands. This is absurd. I came here to prevent exactly this. No, you came here to create a version where I took or refused compensation privately. You are sick. Maybe, but my hands are still empty. That line reached Mrs. Caruso. She looked from my hands to his, then to the envelope. When she spoke to the dispatcher, her voice became crisp. This is not an emergency. A resident has a family member in the lobby attempting to leave an envelope connected to a disputed valuable item. The resident has not touched it. The visitor has been asked to leave. Graham stared at me while she spoke. His charm had nowhere to stand now. If he left the envelope, there was a neutral call. If he took it, he admitted it had never been mine. If he argued, Mrs. Caruso would enjoy remembering every word. He picked up the envelope and asked if I was happy. I said no. You just made Emily's life impossible. I answered, you brought the envelope. He walked out through the glass doors with the envelope under his arm. Mrs. Caruso stayed on the phone until he was outside. Mrs. Caruso asked if I wanted her to write down what she saw. I said yes, please. She nodded. I thought so. For the first time in days, a neutral person had seen me not take something. Mrs. Caruso wrote her statement on condo letterhead because she believed letterhead turned memory into duty. It was 3 sentences. Graham Lowell came with an envelope. Michael Whitaker stated he would not touch it. Graham left with the envelope after non-emergency police advice was requested. She signed with the full force of a woman who had once fined a neighbor for a bicycle in a hallway. I scanned it upstairs and put the original in the folder. Emily called before the scanner lid cooled and asked what I had done. I told her Graham came with an envelope and I did not take it. He was trying to help. I said he used the words compensation paperwork in front of Mrs. Caruso. Because you made him afraid to say anything normally. I closed my eyes. Emily, he is building a story where I wanted money. Maybe because you keep acting like everyone owes you something. That one was hers. Clean, old, and earned in other years. It still did not belong to this frame. I asked whether Graham had told her he contacted Nathan. Nathan is harassing us. I said Nathan stopped answering because she told him I wanted compensation. Silence stretched. Not innocent silence. Choosing silence. Then she said, if you go to police, I don't have a father anymore. The sentence did what she meant it to do. It reached past Graham, past the frame, past Margaret Reed, into every missed weekend and every closed bedroom door after the divorce. For 3 seconds, I was not holding a custody problem. I was holding my daughter at 7, feverish on the couch, asking whether I had to leave again. I said, I love you. She said, then wait. I said no. She hung up so softly I almost wished she had slammed the phone. I did not sleep that night. At 2 in the morning, I took the frame from the locked drawer and placed the sealed bag on the desk beside the folder. I did not open it. The leather case inside looked harmless through plastic, almost ridiculous. A Father's Day gift. A pair of readers. A small object with enough weight to bend a family around it. I wrote the statement by hand first. That slowed the anger. I included Nathan's first whisper, my failure to call from the restaurant, Emily's request to take the frame back, and Graham's replacement offer. Then I added the repair shop, the family group text, the compensation claim, the lobby envelope, and Mrs. Caruso's note. I did not write that Graham was a thief. I wrote that the frame might be connected to a reported theft, and that multiple people had tried to move it or change the story after recognition. At dawn, Linda texted, "Are you going in?" I wrote yes. She answered, "Tell them your delay first. Don't make them find it." That was why I had loved her once and why she had left me. Linda knew the clean cut and did not soften it for my pride. I called Nathan at 7. He did not answer. I left a voicemail. "I am taking the frame and the chronology to the local department today. Do not call Emily. Do not call Graham. If police contact you, tell them exactly what happened, including your doubt about me." Then I put the folder, the bagged case, and Mrs. Caruso's statement into a plain canvas tote. It looked like groceries. It felt like choosing truth over my daughter. By 8, I was in the car outside the police department, and for the first time since Father's Day, the frame was not waiting for family to behave. The police department smelled like floor wax, burnt coffee, and bad news becoming paperwork. I sat in the front lobby with the canvas tote between my shoes, while a young mother argued about a parking ticket, and an older man filled out a form with a golf pencil. Ordinary rooms are where serious things lose their movie lighting. That helped. I did not need drama. I needed a report number and someone neutral to take the frame out of my family. The desk officer was Officer M. Alvarez, not a friend of a friend, not someone impressed by the word investigator. When I said I wanted to report a potentially stolen item in my possession, she looked at me the way good officers look at retired law enforcement adjacent men, with professional suspicion. When she asked who might have stolen it, I said I did not know. When she asked who it might have been stolen from, I gave the limit first. A deceased woman named Margaret Reed, according to her brother. I don't have proof. I have a frame, a repair mark, messages, and a chronology. That answer slowed her pen. Men who come in to accuse usually start with certainty. I started with limits. She asked when I received the item. I said Father's Day. She asked when I was warned it might be stolen. I made myself look at her, not at the tote. At lunch the same day. Then she asked what day it was. Wednesday. Her face did not change, but the room did. My delay was now outside me. When she asked why I waited, there were 4 cowardly answers available. Daughter, confusion, no proof, wanted to avoid drama. All partly true. I gave the one that cost the most. My daughter gave it to me. I gave her time to tell me the truth. During that time, her husband tried to retrieve the frame, and later brought compensation paperwork to my building. Officer Alvarez wrote that down. "Do you have the item with you?" "Yes. It has been in my custody since the gift. Other people touched it at lunch before I understood the issue. I documented that too." Alvarez did not take the tote immediately. She called a supervisor, then asked me to wait. That was good. Quick favors ruin clean stories. The supervisor was Detective Harris, a compact man in shirt sleeves with no interest in my past title. He led me to a small interview room, turned on a recorder, and began again. I answered as if he knew nothing and owed me nothing. When I placed the freezer-bagged case on the table, he did not open it at first. He photographed the bag, the case through the plastic, the folder beside it. Then he put on gloves and asked whether I consented to turning it over for review connected to a possible stolen property report. I said yes. He warned they might not give it back quickly. I said yes. He warned that receipt did not mean they were saying a crime occurred. I said yes again. Each yes took the gift farther away from Father's Day and closer to something Emily could not retrieve with a tote bag. I gave him Nathan's number, Mara's shop information, Saul Friedman's name, Mrs. Caruso's statement, screenshots from Emily and Graham, and the family group text. I also gave him Graham's replacement reader photo and the message to Nathan about harassment. Harris read in silence longer than I wanted. Then he tapped the line about Emily asking Nathan what I demanded. "Your daughter called the potential claimant before you filed this?" I said yes. He asked why. "Because her husband told her I was turning the frame into leverage." Harris said, "And you are here to say you weren't?" I answered, "No. I am here because if I only say it, he wins." Harris looked at me for the first time without the mild impatience he had brought into the room. Fair enough. My phone buzzed while Harris stepped out to log the item. Emily. I let it ring, then ring again. On the third call, Harris opened the door and saw the name on the screen. He asked if I needed to take it. I said no. He nodded as if that answer told him more than the call would have. The phone stopped. A text arrived. Dad, please wait one day. I am begging you. Graham says police will laugh at this, and then my name is in a report forever. I showed Harris the message without speaking. He asked whether I wanted to add it. I did not want to add it. I wanted to put my thumb over Emily's name and keep one corner of the story private. But Linda's warning sat behind my ribs. Do not save her by lying. I said yes. Harris photographed the message and asked me to read it aloud for the recording. My voice held until I reached, I am begging you. There it almost broke. Harris did not look up. That was mercy. He let the sentence be evidence without making my face part of it. Then Graham texted, This is your last chance to keep Emily out of a public mess. Police won't care about an old frame. They will care that you waited and then tried to make us look guilty. That message went into the record, too. Harris asked whether Graham knew I was there. I said Emily likely told him. Or he guessed, Harris said. I agreed. Either way, he told me not to answer right then. For once, being told not to speak felt like relief. Harris returned with a property receipt and a temporary case number printed on thin paper. He slid both across the table but kept one finger on the receipt until I looked at him. This is not proof of ownership. This is not proof of theft. This only shows we received an item and information for review. I said I understood. Good, because families hear report number and think it means verdict. Families also hear report number and think betrayal. I signed where he pointed. Then he asked the question that changed the room. Why had my daughter called Mr. Reed before I filed? I had answered versions of that already, but not with the frame in police custody and a receipt under my hand. The question no longer sounded like curiosity, it sounded like sequence. I said Graham told her I was using the frame as leverage. Harris asked whether she had another reason to contact him. I said she worked around private collectors, and if Nathan started calling the gallery, it could hurt her. That explains fear. It doesn't explain asking what you demanded. I said nothing. Harris wrote one note, then asked whether Emily knew where Graham bought the frame. I said she claimed not to remember. He asked whether she paid for part of it. I said she claimed yes. Then we may need to speak with her. That was the cost I had tried to delay. Official language had reached Emily's door not because I wanted it there, but because she had carried Graham's version to the witness. I said I knew. Harris's voice softened by half an inch. You can tell her we're likely to call. You cannot coach her. I told him I would not. He believed me or he did not. It no longer mattered as much as it had that morning. The object was not in my drawer. Graham could not get it with charm, money, or my daughter's panic. I called Emily from the department parking lot. She answered on the first ring and asked if I had done it. I said yes. The sound she made was not a sob. It was smaller and worse, a breath with nowhere to go. I told her they might call and that she should tell the truth, not guess for Graham, not protect me, not protect him. She said I did not get to tell her what to say after this. I said, I'm not telling you what to say. I'm telling you not to let anyone else write it. She answered, You already wrote it. I looked at the property receipt in my lap. The words were ordinary. 1 pair gold-tone reading glasses in case. No mention of Father's Day, no daughter, no ultimatum, no old guilt. I kept my eyes on the receipt and said, No. I finally stopped writing around it. She went quiet, then asked if I gave them her messages. There was no way to answer without losing more of her. I said yes. When she asked if it was all of them, I said it was the ones explaining why I brought the frame in. So you made me part of it. I answered, Emily, you were already part of it when you called Nathan. She hung up. I sat in the car until the windshield heat became unbearable. Nathan texted while I was still there. Got your voicemail. I won't call them. If police call, I'll answer. That was the first thread that tightened. I drove home without the frame. The empty place in the tote felt larger than the case had. At my condo door, Mrs. Caruso stepped into the hallway and asked if they had taken it. I said yes. Good, she said. Then now everybody has to tell the same story twice. Not everybody, I thought. Some people cannot survive telling the same story twice. Emily went to the police department the next afternoon. She did not ask me to drive her. Linda told me, because Emily had slept at Linda's place and left wearing the same blouse she had worn to the gallery the day before. That detail hurt for reasons that had nothing to do with evidence. A child can be 29, married, furious, and still become, in a parent's mind, the girl who forgot a sweater before a field trip. I drove anyway and parked across the street. That was the line I allowed myself. Present, not coaching. If she walked out shaking, she would see my car if she wanted to. If she wanted to say I had abandoned her, she could not make it fully true. But I did not go inside. Harris had said I could tell her they might call. He had said I could not coach her. There is a difference between waiting and steering. I sat with both hands on the wheel and let it cut. Emily arrived in an Uber. She saw my car before she crossed the sidewalk. For a moment she stopped. Then she kept walking into the department without looking back. Linda called while I waited. She knows you're there, she said. I said yes. She asked whether that means you forgive her. I watched the police department doors close and asked what Linda said. I said your presence is not a receipt. Linda could still find sentences that did the work of a locked door. Emily was inside for 48 minutes. I counted because I needed something to do that was not imagining Graham texting her, Harris asking about the private collector, or my daughter choosing each word like a wire across a hallway. When she came out, she did not come to my car. She stood on the steps and called someone. Not me. Her face changed while she listened. Fear, then anger, then disgust turned inward. Only after that did she cross the street. She opened the passenger door but did not sit down. I told them Graham found the frame. I kept my hands on the wheel. If I reached for her, she might think comfort erased content. If I looked away, she might think I wanted confession more than daughter. I asked what else. Graham claimed it came from a private collector who did not want paperwork because estate people get weird about taxes. That sounded like Graham, plausible enough to be repeated by someone who wanted not to know more. I asked whether she knew the collector's name. She said no. I asked if she had ever asked. Emily's eyes filled, but she held the tears back. Once, he said if I wanted to buy you something beautiful, I should stop making it a compliance meeting. That was a clean Graham sentence. Shame the questioner, praise the gift, keep the source dark. When I asked why she called Nathan, she looked toward the department doors. Graham said Nathan might call Nora and make it sound like I helped move stolen goods through the gallery. He said if I found out what you wanted, maybe we could keep it contained. I repeated, what I wanted. Her voice cracked. I know what that sounds like now. Not enough, but not nothing. I asked whether Graham told her to use the word compensation. She wiped under one eye with the heel of her hand, furious at the tear for existing. He said grown men don't go this far unless they want something. I added the rest. That was the first time she did not put all of it on him. I wanted to tell her that mattered. I did not. Some truths collapse if you reward them too early. Harris asked whether I paid for part of the gift, she said. I asked if she had. Yes, Venmo. $600. Graham said he covered the rest. I asked if she showed them. She had. Her phone buzzed. She looked down and went pale in a way that reminded me of Nathan at the restaurant. Nora, she said. I told her to answer if she needed to. She did, but she put it on speaker without asking. That was her first small refusal to let Graham be the only person who heard things live. Nora Bennett did not waste time. Emily, I just spoke with Detective Harris. I need you away from private client introductions until this is sorted. Emily closed her eyes. Nora, I didn't sell anything. Nora said she had not said that, but until this was sorted, Emily was not handling collector lists, previews, or introductions connected to Graham. Emily whispered that it was her job. Part of your job, and right now part of your job is a risk. The line stayed quiet for one cruel second. Nora was not angry. That made it worse. Anger can be argued with. Procedure just closes doors. Emily asked whether Graham had called. Nora said yes, yesterday. He had said Emily's father and a grieving man were creating a misunderstanding around a gift, and he asked whether any clients had been contacted. That was why Nora had called her attorney before police called her. Emily looked at me then, and I watched one more piece of Graham's protection turn into a cost. Nora continued, "I am not firing you. I am protecting the gallery and, frankly, you. Do not access the private list from home. Do not discuss this with clients. Do not bring Graham to any preview." Emily's mouth trembled when she asked how long. "Until I know what I am dealing with." The call ended. Emily sat halfway in my car, one foot on the curb, and understood that the lie had reached her work before the truth had finished putting on shoes. By evening, Graham's market began to close in the quiet way small markets close, not with announcements, but with unanswered messages. Nora sent Emily one screenshot before she stopped responding to personal texts. It was from a private collector thread, the kind of group Graham loved because nobody wanted rules until rules protected them. The message was short. Until provenance is documented, do not accept frames, watches, or estate accessories from Graham Lowell, or referrals through Emily. Possible police review. Keep communications clean. Emily forwarded it to me without comment. I read it twice. There was no revenge music in it, no public humiliation, just trust stepping back from a man who thought trust was a door he could open from either side. 10 minutes later, Graham called me. I did not answer. He called again. Then he left a voicemail. "Michael, congratulations. You didn't just hurt me. You got your daughter suspended from half her job. I hope the little receipt from police feels good in your pocket." I saved it. Then I sent it to Harris with one line. Graham voicemail after gallery/collector restriction. Harris replied 3 hours later. Received. Do not engage. Emily called after that, voice small. He says I made it worse by talking. I asked whether Graham said he selected the frame. He says I wanted something impressive for you. He says I pushed him. I asked if she had. She let out a laugh with no humor in it. I wanted you to like one thing from me. That part is true. I didn't ask him to bring me something with no name. I told her to say that twice if she had to. When she asked to whom, I said, to anyone who asks. For once, she did not accuse me of coaching. She only said, I don't know what happens to my marriage. I knew what I was supposed to say as a father. We will figure it out. I did not say it because comfort could become another lie. The next morning, Harris called to say they had reached Saul's shop and would request a look at the ledger through the proper channel. He did not promise speed or outcome. He only said, your daughter's statement changes the sequence. When I asked how, he said, it puts Mr. Lowell closer to selection and puts the return requests after recognition. Closer, not guilty, not safe. Closer was enough to make Graham feel the floor move. At noon, he called from a blocked number. I answered because I wanted to hear which version he chose when Charm no longer had witnesses. He said, you destroyed your own daughter's marriage. No hello, no bakery box. I told him not to call me again. She was fine until you needed to be important. I said she gave a statement. Because you cornered her. No, I said, because you gave her a frame you couldn't source and taught her to ask a grieving man what I demanded. For 2 seconds, he breathed into the phone. Then his voice dropped into something almost honest. He said collectors forget, police lose interest, families do not. I told him to remember this. I did not give her the frame. He hung up. I saved the call time and wrote the last line under after handoff. Graham blames marriage loss on report, not on source. The frame was now out of reach. The story was not. That was where part of him still believed he could win. Graham did not come to my condo again. He chose a coffee shop 2 towns over, the kind of place with no table service and too much glass. He wanted neutral ground, but not witnesses who knew either of us. I almost refused. Then Emily sent one text. He says he will leave me if you don't fix what you added. What I added. Not what he had done. Not what she had said. The phrasing made me go, because I needed to know exactly which part of the truth he wanted removed. He was already seated when I arrived, back to the wall, coffee untouched. He looked tired for the first time. Not remorseful. Tired in the way a man gets tired when doors stop opening because his name is on the wrong side. "You came," he said. I told him to talk. He pushed a folded sheet of paper across the table. I did not touch it. He smiled without amusement and called me still careful. I said I was still learning from him. He unfolded it himself. It was not legal paperwork. It was a list. Nora Bennett, 2 collectors I did not know, a stylist in Brooklyn, a private estate broker in Connecticut. Next to each name was a mark. Paused, no response, canceled, pending. When he said this was what I had done, I told him it was what happened after people asked where his objects came from. His fingers pressed the paper flat. "I will leave Emily out of it." I asked, out of what? "Out of us, out of the marriage. I will tell her I need space. I will not fight her about the apartment. I will not touch her job, but you correct the chronology." That was the offer. Not love, not apology. A trade. I asked which part. He named Emily's call to read, the envelope at my building, and the part where I made it sound like he selected the frame after a collector refused it. I asked if he had. Graham looked toward the parking lot. "You don't understand this market." I told him I understood that he did not say no. Graham leaned forward. "A collector turned it down because she thought it was too recognizable. That is not a crime." I asked why he gave it to my daughter for Father's Day. "Because it was beautiful, and because Emily wanted something that would make you look at her like she had finally done something right." That was the first honest cruelty he gave me. It worked because part of it was true. Emily had wanted that. I had wanted it more. I said he used that. He called it an opportunity. I called it what it was. Using my daughter's need to be forgiven as packaging. His face hardened. "You don't get to talk about her needs. You trained her to beg for crumbs, then act shocked when someone else feeds her." If he had said that 2 days earlier, I might have swung at him. Not because it was false. Because it was shaped to make my guilt drive. Now it only showed me the engine he had used. I laid out the chronology. He found a frame a collector would not take. He put it into my daughter's gift. After Nathan recognized it, he tried to get it back. When that failed, he made Emily ask whether I wanted compensation. When that failed, he brought an envelope. When that failed, he blamed the report. Graham said I could not prove theft. I said I never claimed I could. He said that meant I had nothing. I told him I had enough for people who trade on trust to stop trusting him. That landed. Graham's eyes went flat. He asked whether I thought that was justice. I said it was inventory. He had lost exactly the thing he was spending. He folded the paper slowly. The list of paused names disappeared into a neat square. When he said Emily would lose him if I left the chronology as it was, I told him her marriage was hers, but the lie was not. My phone buzzed on the table. Nora Bennett. I did not answer, but I read the preview. Detective Harris asked for Graham's client introduction dates. I am providing only documented gallery contacts. Graham read my face better than I wanted and asked if it was Nora. I said yes. He closed his eyes, not like a man grieving, but like a man adding losses. He said she had no right to give them client history. I said she had a right to protect her gallery. When he asked if I meant from him, I said, from undocumented objects moving through her employee's husband. His hand tightened around the folded list until the paper creased. Those people begged me for access when they wanted rare pieces. They loved no paperwork when it saved them money. Now they act clean because one old man whispered police. His contempt finally came through without polish. Not for me, for the same market whose trust had fed him. I told him to say that to them. He stared. No? Then you understand the consequence. Another message arrived, this time from Emily. Nora says Graham cannot come to any preview or contact clients through me. She says if I share a list from home, I'm done. I turned the phone so Graham could read it. His face did not move, but color rose under his skin. He accused me of enjoying it. I said no. He said I wanted to punish him. I said I wanted the frame out of my house. When he asked what I wanted now, I said, Now I want my daughter to stop bleeding for your source." The coffee shop door opened, and a woman laughed too loudly outside. For a second, the ordinary world came in. Sun, traffic, burnt espresso. Graham looked almost shocked that other people still had errands. "You don't know what you've started," he said. "You started it when you made Father's Day a storage plan." I left before he spent the last word. At home, Emily was waiting outside my door with a folded receipt in her hand. She looked younger than she had at the police department, because humiliation strips adults down to the age where they first learned shame. She said Graham told her we had met, and that I refused to fix the part about her. I said, "I refuse to lie about you." That made her flinch. Good. Not because I wanted pain, but because clean words have edges, and she needed to know where they were. She held out the receipt. "This is my Venmo and the card charge." $600 from me. The rest from Graham's business card. Harris already has a copy, but I wanted you to see I didn't make that up. I did not take it right away and asked why she brought it to me, because I kept saying it was a gift like that made it cleaner. It doesn't. I paid for part of the box he used. That was the closest she had come to saying it without being led. I took the receipt, looked at it, and handed it back. She asked if I needed it. I said police had it. She needed to remember it. She folded it carefully, as if the crease could put order back into the day, then said he might leave. I told her he had already offered me that. Emily looked up. "What?" I said he would leave her and not fight about the apartment if I corrected the chronology. The last color left her face when she asked whether he made her the price. I said he tried. She leaned one shoulder against the hallway wall. For a moment, I thought she might fall. I did not reach for her. Not yet. This was the part she had to stand inside. When she asked what I said, I told her, "Your marriage is yours. The lie is not." Emily stayed in the hallway for another minute, then said, "I don't know if I hate you or if I needed you to do it." I said both could be true. She gave a short, exhausted laugh. "You would say that." I would. The elevator dinged at the end of the hall. Neither of us moved. She looked at my door, then at the receipt in her hand, and asked if she could come in. That was the question I had wanted for years, and it arrived at the wrong time with the wrong price attached. If I said yes too quickly, she would think truth had bought the old room back. If I said no, Graham's version of me would gain one more brick. "For 10 minutes, I said. "Not to talk about Graham, not to plan a statement, to sit." She nodded, and those 10 minutes were harder than any police interview. Emily sat on the far end of the couch and held the folded receipt like a ticket she was afraid to lose. I made coffee, neither of us drank. No apology came. No forgiveness came. We were not clean. We were only not lying for one quiet stretch of time. When she left, she said she would answer if Harris called again. I said good. She asked what I would do if Graham called. I said I would not bargain. She nodded, as if that hurt and helped at once. At the elevator, she turned back and said, "Dad, I did want you to like them." I thought of the gold frame in a police property room, the empty case no longer in my house, the drugstore readers I still had not bought. "I know," I said. "That is why it worked." Graham stopped calling me. That sounds like peace if you have never been used as cover. It was not peace. It was a man moving pressure to places I could not hear. Emily's phone, Nora's inbox, collectors who wanted their own hands clean, maybe lawyers turning every family sentence defensive. Harris called once that week. The department had viewed Saul Friedman's ledger through the shop. The entry existed. Margaret Reed, Spring 2018, gold readers, bridge reinforcement, initials confirmed. Harris did not tell me more, and I did not ask for what he could not give. The frame remained with them for review against the old report. No arrest, no television ending. Just the fact that the object was no longer where Graham could sell it, hide it, or make it my private problem. Emily stayed at Linda's. Linda told me because Emily still would not. She said Emily was sleeping badly, working from a stripped-down gallery roll, and not answering Graham after midnight. That mattered. Not because silence is courage by itself, but because Graham had built his best work when people were tired and wanted pain to stop. Nora kept Emily away from private lists. The collector thread stayed quiet after the first warning. Quiet is not forgiveness in those circles. Quiet is quarantine. Graham's name did not disappear, but it stopped opening doors. Two people who once asked him for estate accessories now asked Nora whether he had paperwork. A stylist canceled a pull. The Connecticut broker paused until Providence questions are resolved. No one said ruined. They said paused, pending, not comfortable, need documentation. In Graham's business, those words were a locked gate with polite hinges. Emily came to my condo 8 days after the police handoff. She texted first, "Can I come by for 15 minutes? I am not bringing Graham. I am not asking you to call anyone." I said yes because the message named boundaries before I had to. Not forgiveness. A doorbell I could answer. She arrived with no makeup and a manila envelope. I noticed both and commented on neither. She sat at the kitchen table this time, not the couch, and placed the envelope between us. She said she gave Harris Graham's voice memo, the one where he told her to say I was making Nathan guess a number. She thought it was gone, but it was in deleted messages on her laptop. I did not touch the envelope. When I asked whether Harris requested it, she said she had called him, and he told her how to send it without editing anything. That was new. Not confession after being cornered. Action before being dragged. I said good. Emily looked at my hands, maybe waiting for them to soften, and asked if it was. I said yes. Then she asked if it was enough. Some questions beg you to become a worse person out of kindness. Enough to come home? Enough to be forgiven? Enough to turn fear into proof she had never harmed me. If I answered too gently, truth became a coupon. Too hard and punishment became my new language. It is enough for the next honest conversation, I said. It is not enough to buy the old house back. She nodded as if she had expected worse and hoped for better, then said she did not know where she would live. I said Linda had offered for now. Emily said, I know. I mean after. After Graham. After the gallery. After the version of herself that could still say gift without tasting metal. Then you decide after telling the truth twice, I said, not before. The empty case was still in my hall closet, not the gold frame. That was gone. The old leather case had stayed because police had taken the frame in a separate property bag after photographing the packaging. I had moved the case twice, office to closet, as if distance inside an apartment could change what it meant. Emily saw it when I opened the closet for coffee filters and asked why I kept it. I said police did not need it. She asked if I did. I looked at the case on the shelf. Without the glasses, it had no dignity. Just a small, hollow thing lined in dark velvet, made to protect something valuable and used to carry something rotten into my hands. I said no. I took it down and set it on the table. Emily flinched when it landed, though it made almost no sound. I said I thought keeping it would make me remember the whole story, but I already remembered. When she asked what I would do with it, I said I would put it away where I did not see it by accident, not throw it out. Not yet. That disappointed her. I let it. She still wanted gestures large enough to read as verdicts. Thrown away means punished, kept means forgiven, returned means reset. Life after a lie is meaner. Sometimes an object goes into a drawer because nobody has earned a cleaner symbol. She touched the edge of the case with one finger, then pulled her hand back. I used to think you kept things because cases were easier than people. I said sometimes I did. When she asked about now, I said, now I am trying not to use people as cases. She nodded. That was not healing. It was only a sentence neither of us would have survived 2 weeks earlier. After Emily left, I walked to the pharmacy on Bloomfield Avenue. I could have ordered new glasses properly, waited, made an appointment, chosen frames with a clean receipt and no family attached. Instead, I stood under fluorescent lights and turned a rack of cheap readers with my thumb. Plus 150, plus 175, plus 2. Black plastic, brown plastic, clear plastic that made every man look like he had borrowed homework. I chose the plainest pair, $12.99 before tax. The cashier asked if I wanted a bag. I said no and put them on before I left the store. The world sharpened badly, unevenly, good enough for a receipt and not much else. That felt appropriate. Outside, my phone buzzed. Harris again. He said Emily had sent the voice memo correctly. Nathan had given a statement and admitted he doubted me after Emily's call. The old report would take time to compare. Harris did not say Graham would be arrested. He did not say Margaret's family would get everything back. He gave me no clean line for an ending. "Mr. Whitaker," he said before hanging up, "for what it's worth, the chronology helped." I almost laughed. A life of failed dinners, missed calls, and a daughter who thought love sounded like cross-examination. And in the end, I could still offer a chronology. At home, I put the pharmacy receipt beside the empty case, then changed my mind. The receipt went into the trash. The case went to the closet. The cheap readers stayed on my face. They were ugly. They slid down my nose. They belonged to nobody dead, nobody charming, nobody laundering fear through Father's Day. Enough. Emily came by the following Sunday. Not for lunch. Not for forgiveness. She brought no gift. She brought the voice memo submission confirmation and a key to Graham's storage unit, which she had given Harris's number to instead of using herself. She said she did not know what was in there and did not want to know alone. I said, "Good." She looked at the cheap readers on my face and almost smiled. Almost. She said they were terrible. I said they worked. "Not well," she said. "Well enough." We stood in the doorway because neither of us had decided what kind of visit this was. Then she asked the question I had known was coming. Did she get to come back? I could have pretended not to understand. I could have made it about the apartment, Sunday coffee, holidays, calls. But daughters rarely ask the question they are really asking in the first words. "Truth gets you the next conversation," I said. "Time decides access. I don't know yet what comes back." Her eyes filled. This time she did not wipe them away. She said that sounded like a sentence. I said it was a boundary. "Same thing coming from me," she said. "Maybe," I told her, "but this one had a door." She nodded once, took the confirmation paper back, and left without hugging me. Halfway to the elevator, she turned and said, "Happy Father's Day," 2 weeks late and with nothing in her hands. It hurt more than the gold frame had. I said thank you. The elevator closed between us. I went back inside, wearing $12 readers, with an empty case in the closet, and no clean ending. Graham had lost the route he used. Emily had lost the right to turn one truthful act into home. I had lost the Father's Day I wanted. What remained was smaller, harder, and more honest. A daughter who might tell the truth again. A father who would not buy silence with guilt and cheap glasses that showed me enough.